Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Today's the Day Changemakers podcast. I am your host, Jody Grinwald, and I have a question for you. Have you really paid attention to the coincidences that come your way or the by chance meetings that you've had? And have you thought about how they changed your trajectory in your life and your career? Well, Ciarán Sheehan had an amazing thing happen to him years ago. He met someone at a train station who gave him a phone number that changed his life incredibly. He has performed in over 1,000 performances as the Phantom in Phantom of the Opera. He is now touring with the Four Phantoms, and he has performed in such incredible locations, sharing his incredible talent. And he is also now a voice healer, utilizing his talent in other ways. He also has experienced some major challenges in his life. Abuse as a child from a trusted adult, and a near fatal car crash. Incredible challenges that came his way that he has been able to overcome. He shares his journey here on this podcast, and I'm forever grateful. And joined with us is my incredible co-host, Scott Chesney, the Commander-in-Change, phenomenal motivational speaker, and an incredible life coach. And I hope you'll take a listen to part one, and we will be finishing this the following week in part two, as this story is just incredible. What a journey Ciarán has had. I hope you will like us on Facebook and Instagram at Today is the Day Live It. And I hope you will also subscribe to the Today's the Day Changemakers YouTube channel. You can stream this on all streaming sites as well. And I look forward to sharing more of Ciarán's story. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Today's the Day Changemakers podcast. I am your host, Jody Grinwald, and I say in every episode, I interview the changemakers, the inspirers, and those who are disrupting the status quo in the best way possible. And today I am super lucky because I have not only a co-host, but a co-host who's now appearing on here for the fourth time, we decided, right, Scott?
Absolutely. 4 times. One more.
Scott Chesney is known as the Commander-in-Change, and he said one more because he wants the Today's the Day Changemakers jacket, which is brand new. First one's going to Fred Wozniak. So Scott, hurry up, bring another guest on, and you'll get the jacket too.
This might be the last one. I can't get any better than this, so we'll see.
Oh no, I believe each one is individually unique, but
Pressure's
Ciarán
on,
is
Ciarán.
amazing. Ciarán is amazing. And I also just want to say Scott is an unbelievable motivational speaker, life coach, exceptional at all that he does. Absolutely. Scott, just before we move forward, where do people find you?
Oh, they can just go to my website, www.scottchesney.com, and all my social media handles are there as well.
And I'm so excited for us to both welcome Ciarán Sheehan. Ciarán, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thanks so much, Jody. Thanks, Scott.
So I'm just going to read a little bit of your bio. I'm going to miss a lot of it because we're going to have this conversation. And when I look, and when Scott sent me your bio, I was like, okay, this is the whole podcast if I say this whole thing. So we're not going to do that. So I'm just going to read a little bit of it.
Yeah.
Isn't it amazing what he can say about himself? I just think that's amazing that okay, let's just go with it. We'll
so
see.
I shouldn't ask my usual questions like, how did it feel after I read that to you, right? Because he knows it so well. Dublin born, Ciarán Sheehan is an acclaimed actor, singer, voice healer, and I can't wait to get to that part of it as well, whose performances have been said to warm the heart and touch the soul. There is an amazing quality to his voice, and his ability to capture an audience is nothing short of remarkable. Ciarán has many professional accomplishments to his credit, most notably playing the role of the Phantom in the Phantom of the Opera for over 1,000, I'll say that again, 1,000 performances on Broadway and in Toronto. But perhaps of more importance than his accomplishments is his sincere desire to use his incredible talents to inspire others to look within themselves to discover their own inner beauty. Just so amazingly beautiful and wonderful. As a voice healer, Ciarán has taught with his friend, world-renowned spiritual medium James Van Praagh at the Omega Institute for Holistic Studies. In his program, Awaken, Ciarán uses the power of music, meditation, and his own life story to help transform the lives of all who hear him, particularly abuse survivors like himself. Ciarán is thrilled to be adding this spiritual healing genre to his repertoire and feels privileged to be able to use his talents to impact the lives of others in a healing way. Also, you're performing in the Four Phantoms, and it features the extraordinary quartet of performers who were the Phantoms and Phantom of the Opera. And there's so much more because from acting to singer to spiritual connection, Ciarán has been an incredible spirit, and he is an incredible spirit. And I can't wait to talk about the ride of your life, from the beginning till now, starting in Dublin. So I will ask you this. How did it feel to hear that very shortened version?
I was like, who are you talking about?
So
I want to meet that guy.
I always do this with my guests, grew up in Dublin. Talk a little bit about that, because we know I know from our past conversation, you kind of bounce between here and there. Do you want to give us so talk a little bit about that for us.
Yeah, sure. My parents actually, my mother's originally from Dublin and my father's from Kerry. And they both emigrated to the US in the 50s. And they met in the Catskills in just north of the city, and got married in New York City. And my mom lost the first baby. So when she was pregnant, expecting me, she went back to Ireland to have me. And so I was born there. So the first year of my life was with other than my mom, obviously, and my granny and her sisters. So and then when I was about one, we moved back to New York and was there in the city. But I'd spend the summers in Ireland. And when I was 4, they sent me back to live with my grandmother and my aunt. They were fed up with me. So they shipped me off, and I was there until I was about 5, and came back at 5. But I would also go the day I'd get out of school in New York, I'd be on a plane at JFK to Dublin, and spend my summers there. So I feel like sometimes I feel like a man with no home, and then I feel like a man with 2 homes, because when I say home, when I'm here in my home, I'm saying I'm going home, I mean Ireland. But so I feel very much a part of both countries, and was there until I was about 15, and then came back into central New Jersey and went to high school there. But I will say there was one year in that stretch where, in the course of about 9 months, moved from Dublin to Clare to Limerick to Chicago to Lawrenceville, New Jersey, and then back to Dublin. So yeah,
very
my father was a
interesting.
restless young man.
Very interesting. Then you say all these really nice, sounds like amazing places, because I don't know them. And then Lawrenceville, New Jersey.
I like Lawrenceville.
I love it. Mercer County is beautiful. I love New Jersey, and I love Lawrenceville too.
Yeah.
But interesting enough, as we said, that you were one of the played one of the Phantoms in Phantom of the Opera on Broadway.
Yeah.
People understand and know that role pretty much well. But that's started when you started singing, is it?
Well, I started singing really well. I always sang. It's funny. I remember I did a concert a number of years ago in the National Concert Hall in Dublin, and I was introduced, and a person came out and said, this is Ciarán's debut, in Ireland, in Dublin. And I got out on stage, and I'd been warned by my producer not to be me. So she said, "You can't be you." I'm like, "What do you mean you can't be you? You can't act the Egypt. You have to be serious. It's the concert hall. It's like Carnegie Hall in Ireland, And so, of course, I get out there and I say, "Yeah, this is not my debut." My debut was when I was 4, and I sang at my Auntie Christine's wedding. And I remember I got up on stage and I kept singing "Happy Days Are Here Again" over and over. And then I said to the audience, there was also another song that I sang, and I said, I don't know the title of it. So I sang a little of it. It was like, "There were cats eating all the rats in the store." And somebody in the audience shouted out, "That's the quartermaster store." And I said, "Do you know it?" And I see her in the wings, the producer. She's like, "Oh my God, he's gone. He's gone." And I said, "We'll sing it." So then you've got a couple of thousand people singing "The Quartermaster Store," and she was going to kill me anyway. But
Ron, I got to tell you though, is that gotten to know you, but looking over your bio, I'm hearing, and I want to hear about this rock and roll band, because as I'm reading that, I'm like, right away, I thought about Freddie Mercury. in terms of how he started with that rock and roll band. And I have like the same vision of you starting that way and everything. And I can't imagine you singing rock and roll based on everything else that you do. But how is that experience for you?
Well, in high school, after we moved back here, my best friend was in a rock band. He was guitar player, lead guitar player in the band. Back then, when you had the lead guitar player and the rhythm guitar player, and he was trying to learn a song, and he said, "Can you sing?" And I said, "Yeah, not really, not." I mean, I'd sung in a choir in New York from second grade to fifth grade, but that was the end of it. And he said, "Well, I'm trying to learn this song." So I sang along with it, and he put the guitar down and went down the hall to his sister, Brenda, who was the bass player and the lead singer in the band, and said, "Brenda, Ciarán's the new singer." So, yeah, sang rock and roll all through high school and then into college. Well, I was an engineering major in college and bored out of my mind. Bored out of my mind. I had taken all math, AP math and science classes in high school. So when I got to Rutgers, it was like, oh, I can't do this again, And so I dropped out and joined a metal band, much to my parents' chagrin, and played clubs like the Stone Pony. I know you're down, down towards the show. Lumores in Brooklyn and places like that. And it was great fun, just really great fun. And I still enjoy doing that. Like if you ask me if there's any genre I would rather sing above all others, it'd probably be, classic hard rock metal. Yeah. So
That's so interesting compared, right? But the interesting part is when we did have our pre-conversation, you're more of the actor-singer than singer-actor.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of, this is going to sound terrible because my son is at the moment playing, he's doing Gypsy on Broadway. And yeah, I know opened, first performances started in November. And he's sort of following the footsteps, but I'm not a big musical theater fan at all, which is a funny thing to say for, a guy who played the Phantom, because I actually took lessons to get to play the role. I met Hal Prince, who directed Phantom. We were doing an off-Broadway play together that he had written and was directing, and asked me if I sang. And next thing I know, I'm taking voice lessons with his daughter's voice teacher. And he was like a father to me. He paid for my voice lessons. He and a woman named Charlotte Moore, who runs the Irish Repertory Theater in New York. And yeah, it's so funny because that now people, when they know me because as the guy who played the Phantom, or the guy who was in Les Mis, in New York, and they don't. So the assumption then is, oh well, he sings, pretty well, so he can't act. There's no way you can do both. But acting was really my passion, and I miss that at times.
So you had a lot of things, it seems, that have happened throughout the years that were these that were just unavoidable gifts that came your way.
Yeah.
Right. Do you want to speak to a little bit of some of those stories that you shared with me in our pre-conversation, in that, there, especially the one where you were on the train, right? You were on the train and you met. Yeah. So I would love for our listeners to hear, because I'm very big on sharing with the listeners around the world. And thank you to those who have downloaded and listened in 833 countries, cities, I should say, 833 cities around the globe. I'm sorry?
That's fabulous. That's great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Jody, wait a minute. Does that include Dublin?
Yeah, Ireland is in there. Ireland, absolutely. And Dublin is in there. And it would be this.
I haven't heard the Irish accent yet, so I'm not sure if the whole Dublin, born there and everything is true. But we kind of know based on his accent now, because Jody, we're from New Jersey and he lives in New Jersey. Like, I don't think he's spending much time in Dublin these days. That's just me, though. Let's get back to the train. I'm sorry.
Well, it's funny because the accent thing is part of that story. So I was in Union Square Station, in Manhattan, at the 456 line, and I hear to my right, I hear this guy saying, "Does this train go to Grand Central Station?" Right? And I'm like, "Oh, he's from Dublin," but the conductor, who is also speaking English, It's probably from somewhere in the Caribbean. He's like, "Hey man, what'd you say, man? I don't understand." But, so they're both speaking English and not communicating at all. So I looked at him, and he looked. This is going to sound terrible, but he looked kind of like a homeless fella, And I thought, let me help this guy, and I grab him. I'm like, yes, this goes to Grand Central Station. Get on the train. And he's like, oh, thanks, man. So I said, where are you off to? He said, I'm actually flying out of JFK tonight. I do a one-man Beckett show. I'm going to Germany, to Berlin to do it. I was like, wow, okay, my kind of guy. And he says, what do you do yourself? I said, well, I'm an actor as well. And he said, how's it going for you? I said, it's going all right, I said, at that time, I was doing a lot of soaps, commercials, things like that. And I wanted to do just more plays. And he said, do you know the guys at the Irish Rep? And I said, no, but I keep getting messages. So here you are. People have said to me over the last few months, have you contacted the people at the Irish Rep? Have you contacted people at the Irish Rep? And I thought, okay, I got to contact the people at the Irish Rep. And so he gave me a guy named Ciarán O'Reilly's phone number, and I wrote it down, and I called Ciarán, who was very polite, but clearly didn't want to hear from anybody, And he's like, I said, listen, Chris O'Neill, who coincidentally, when we were talking about his acting on the train, it turned out that he had been on this incredibly successful show in Ireland called The Reardons. It was like Dallas over here. It was like no one missed The Reardons. And he played Gabriel Byrne's brother, Benji Reardon. I was like, wow, pretty amazing. So anyway, I called Ciarán, and he was polite enough. And I said, what do you, he said, have you seen Making History? Brian Friel play that they were doing on 42nd Street. And I said, no. He said, well, why don't you come see the show? And I think he was just trying to be nice and get rid of me, So went to see the show, met Ciarán and Charlotte, who run the Rep, and went out for a jar after with them across the street. And I said, when are you closing that? And he said, Sunday. I said, do you need help? He said, that'd be great. So I said, I'll see you on Sunday. What time are you? 5 o'clock. I'll be here. And then they were doing a show with the fabulous actor, Milo O'Shea, who he played the judge in The Verdict with Paul Newman, and the nicest man. He played such, he was a terror in that movie, and they were doing a show at the Public Theater, and I said, you need help? He said, that'd be great. And I went and I hung lights. So they said to me, just like Scott Bird, he said, can you do an Irish accent? And I said, yeah, I am from Dublin, and I said, why? They said, well, we're doing a play that Hal Prince has written called Grandchild of Kings. It's about Sean O'Casey, and you'd be perfect to play one of Sean's older brothers. And that was that, and it all came from, I hear a guy who's a little lost a few feet away, just trying to get 2 stops up, to Grand Central Station. And it changed my life. As opposed to, I find that sometimes you go through life and something will hit you, and you can either choose to ignore it or embrace it. And because I heard him and I didn't ignore it and wasn't worried about getting to my next stop. I thought, let me help this guy who actually helped me, but I didn't know it at the time, So I say to my kids too, I say, if you're given an opportunity, go through the door. As long as you're not going to get hurt, go through the door. You're given these opportunities. And I think sometimes if we don't pay attention to those opportunities, we get smacked in the head, and we get getting smacked harder until we go through the door,
I just want to bring up something. You had all the messages and you followed them, but you did something unique. I don't know. I'm sure you realize it, but to me on this side, listening, is you asked a question. Do you need help with that? And you put yourself out there to say, I will be that help for you. I will help you put up lights or take down sets. And by doing that and giving of your time freely, that kept the connection going.
Yeah, it did. I suppose, though, I don't know if it's genetic. But my wife, someone was talking about this about a week ago about someone else from Ireland who, it was actually a family member, said, "Oh yeah, so we just invited them to stay with us for months, you know." And she turns around, she goes, "At me, because that'd be me, you know." I'm like, if someone's stuck, you lend a hand, you know. And it's how I was raised, is how my, you know, as crazy at times as my father was, you know, he'd give you the shirt off his back, you know, without a thought, without knowing who you are, you know. And I remember, this is funny, I remember when we were living in Dublin, there was a knock at the door, and two young fellas, I think they were both from Salt Lake City. They were both on their Mormon missions, and they were getting nowhere in Dublin at that time period. So my mother's like, "Come on in, I'll feed you dinner." You know, so they would come, they'd go to do their missions. They were in our house 4 or 5 nights a week. They were doing nothing to do with the mission, but they'd stay with us, and my father would take them fishing, and we'd take them to the beach. And, you know, it's just, I don't know, it's just
Beautiful. Oh my goodness, that's amazing. Wonderful.
Jody,
Scott, you have, go ahead.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, I just want to comment on that story, but it's one of the things that I love about Ciarán, and I've only known Ciarán a little over a year now, and one of the things that I noticed, and I'm gonna put him in a very rare group, probably more so than anyone else that I've met around the world. Ciarán is always present in the moment. He's got a past. He's got an amazing past. He's got a challenging past. He has a promising future. We don't know what's in store, but there's a lot of things that I know that we talked about and he's working on, but he's in that moment. So when he's in that moment, he's about service. He's about helping. He's about, like, you know what? I don't care what your political background is. I don't care what your religion is. I don't care. You are a human being in front of me who needs help. And he's that way. And I even noticed that. So the first time, and I didn't share this before, when I met him, dear friend, Father Pete, where Ciarán goes to church, and as well as our good friend Joe Wolf had introduced him to me. And I was just so mesmerized. I know we're going to get into his voice healing. But you could tell how much he's in the moment with his music, with his acting, with everything across the board. He had me at hello. I know it's a line from Jerry Maguire. He had me at hello, and it was that magical voice of his. I'm sorry?
I said, "You're going to make me cry. Stop."
Oh, that's when the Irish accent comes out, when he starts crying. No, but I have never, ever been moved the way he's moving with his voice in terms of singing. And so he captured me at the church where he sang. It was Christmas of 2024. And then, which was interesting because this was just a few months ago. I'm there kind of like wanting to chill out. I'll watch a little TV before I go to bed. All of a sudden I flick on PBS, and look who's there with the four Phantoms, and they're singing. Now I'm wanting to calm down before I go to bed, but just when I saw him sing live in that church, now I start crying. I start crying, and it's healing and it's awesome, but not something I want to do before I go to bed. Like, I couldn't get rid of him. Like, here he is on my TV. I'll go see him. He's mine. No, but you know what? It's a testament to him. And I wish more people in the world were like him in terms of not holding people, like carrying a grudge or anything based on the past, and giving everybody an opportunity to be the best versions of themselves. And so in a short period of time, I've learned a tremendous amount from Ciarán, and just looking forward to increasing our friendship, doing some work together. And no, just again, he's an amazing teacher. Amazing teacher.
Wow. How much? You didn't pay him for that either. That was just pure, strictly authentic.
Give me the Venmo. What's
I
going on?
actually just got a Venmo. What happened there? That's supposed to be at the end.
That's great. Oh my gosh. If you've heard something in this episode that has really resonated with you, I hope that you will take a moment to share it with those that you know. Give them the opportunity to hear a message that belongs to them as well. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Today is the Day Live It. And don't forget, subscribe to our Today's the Day Changemakers YouTube channel to be notified when new episodes come out, new stories are shared, new nuggets of information can really truly have an impact in all of our lives. That's why I love sharing these kinds of stories, changemaker stories, people who are doing incredible things in their corner in the world and beyond, and sharing their lessons learned as they continue to move through life. And don't forget, you could stream this on all streaming platforms. Well, I bet you there are going to be people listening to this saying, okay, so Dublin, then he was a rock star for a little bit from school, and then he met this incredible guy on the train. But then they're going to want to know, so how did you become the Phantom?
So, so I was doing this play called Grandchild of the Kings with Hal Prince, and what happened actually was the night before the first reading, I got a phone call from Ciarán O'Reilly, who said that Hal wanted a song to start the reading. And he said, it's really important to Hal that this particular song starts the reading. And so then I thought, okay, this is a big deal. And he said, can you sing? Because none of the rest of us can sing. And I said, yeah, I mean, I sang as a kid and I used to sing in a rock band, but it's been years since I've done that. And I said, but yeah, I'll give it a go. Sure. And he said, okay, so the song is called Believe Me If All Those Endearing Young Charms. He said, do you know it? And I lied and said, yes. So I called my mother at home and I said, Mom, do you know the song Believe Me If All Those Endearing Young Charms? Now, everyone, not everyone, but a lot of people who will be watching this will not know that they actually do know Believe Me If All Those Endearing Young Charms, because it's a very famous Bugs Bunny episode where he plays the piano. Dun, 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 plays the wrong note. And then I think Daffy Duck gets on there and plays the right one, and the right one blows up the piano, So that's the song. So I called my mother and I said, this, and she said, yeah. And I said, great. So hang up, call me back. I'm not picking up. Sing the bloody song on the answering machine, which she did. And I wish I had that recording, God, because she passed 3 years ago, And so I went in the next day and belted out this song. And I did, again, I'm not a big musical theater fan, so I didn't know these people who were there. But Stephen Sondheim was there, and James Lapine was there, and all these, big deal on Broadway guys were there. And so after the first act, Charlotte came up to me and I said, what do you think? Was it all right? And she said, they're like, who the hell's that guy? So and then Hal started adding more music to the piece. And then he said to me, have you seen Phantom? And I said, no. I said, listen, Chief, which I called him Chief. And I said, Chief, I don't like musicals. And he said, get your ass up to the Majestic, because you've got a baby at home and you need a job. So, and I think it could be a good job for you. So I went and I saw the show, and I had heard rumors that they were starting to put another touring company of Phantom together, the Third National Tour. So I saw the show and I thought, I got to play that guy. That guy's a mess. I know that guy. And so I called him right after the show, which was like 10:30 at night. I said, Chief, I got to play that guy. And he said, well, slow down, because you've never done a musical. And let's work on seeing if we can get you to play Raoul, the boyfriend role in the show. And then we'll hopefully work you up to playing the Phantom, which is sort of what happened. When I was suggested then to play Raoul on the Third National Tour, the producers were like, no way. Because I had never done, I was an actor, straight actor, and I hadn't sung a note really in, 10 years until this off-Broadway thing. But Hal and he kind of went to war, and Hal was in my corner. And so out of nowhere, I got a phone call from same casting people for Les Mis, same producers. And we want you to audition for Les Mis. And I said, okay, great. So I went in and auditioned for it and booked it and did Les Mis for a few months. And then they went, okay, he can play Ralph. So
Incredible, right, Scott?
I, I'm blown away. I guess when you, this is my question is that, so you're Phantom number 3, so to speak.
you mean
Where do you fall with the 4 Phantoms with regards to like who went first, who went second?
We all did it at different times in different cities. So John Cudilla, who did it maybe about 10 years ago, he did it in New York.
Okay.
Frank D'Ambrosio did it in San Francisco. And then Brent Barrett did it in Las Vegas and in Germany. I think in Munich, I think. And then I did it in New York and in Toronto. So I think they were just trying to get kind of a little global coverage, you know. So.
Now, how is that, Ciarán, in terms of, I'm assuming feeding off the audience in terms of doing the same thing? I mean, I don't even know how many nights you did straight at one time. I know there has to be a break during the week.
Well, the New York schedule was we were dark on Sundays, so there was no Sunday show. It was Monday, Tuesday, 2 Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 2 Saturday, and then we were done. The schedule in Toronto was great because it was there were no shows Monday or Tuesday. It was 2 on Wednesday, 2 on Thursday, 1 on Friday, 2 on Saturday, and a Sunday matinee. So I would be done at 4:30 on Sunday, and I wouldn't have to be back in the makeup chair until 12 o'clock on Wednesday. So I was able to, I would fly home every week to be with my son. And it was all pre 9/11. So the show would come down at 4:30 in Toronto, and I would be on a 5:40 flight to Newark. I'd land at 7. I'd be home by 8. You know, so it was great. You know, and then I didn't have to. I would catch a 10:30 flight then on Wednesday morning, so I could spend a few days with him.
So I don't want to miss out on this though. In terms of how you got up for each performance, because we have a lot of people who listen to this program, and I don't want to say doing the same thing every day and so forth, but you had something. You had to perform the same role every day for at least 6 days out of the week. What advice would you give someone, not just who's an aspiring actor or an aspiring performer, but in any job? Like, what did you do to, I mean, yes, there's a paycheck. Yes, there's this and everything, but there's got to be more that kind of allowed you to rise above whatever mundane challenges there might have been in terms of doing the same thing over and over.
Well, I think a couple of things come to mind. My father, both parents were gone, were passed by the time he was about 12 or 13. And then he was out on the streets. So there was no education then past that age. And when he came to this country, I think a lot of, this is a gross generalization, but I think a lot of immigrants who come to the country come with a desire to make something of their lives. They're the type of people, at least, who want to make something out of their lives in general. Not everybody. Well, some of the people you don't want here, but you know. But I think a lot of them do. And my father always had this incredible work ethic, which he shared with us. And when I was growing up in New York City, he was the super in the building. And he was bound and determined that the brass mailboxes in our building shined like nobody else's. And the halls were immaculate. And I great respect for that. You know, I refer to it as the pursuit of excellence. If you're going to do something, do it, you know, or don't at all. You know, when I went into Les Mis, I saw some of the actors sort of walking through the show, and it would infuriate me because I thought there's 10,000 people outside that door who would love to be doing what you're doing. First of all, we're working part-time and we're getting overpaid, so be grateful, an attitude of gratitude. I also often would think it's a cost a bloody fortune to go do a show. And now it's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. And I think oh, there he goes. Man, I'm the worst. As kids, we sort of had nothing, Of course, we all of us who grew up in that area of New York, we didn't find out till years later. We grew up in an Irish slum, So we didn't realize we didn't have anything. We had patches in our pants and, holes in our shoes, but, we didn't know. We were having a great time and we were grateful for what we had, but we never got the opportunity to go to the theater. After my communion, we went to the local diner. That was the highlight of years, So I think about like the guy who is whatever, Joe the plumber, bringing his wife and his 2.5 kids to see a show. It costs, it's a big sacrifice. If you can't do your job, I get mad too. If you can't do your bloody job,
Here it comes. Here it comes.
Then get out. And I'd hear people in the theater going, "Oh, I'm tired. I don't think I'm up to doing this show. It's hard work." I'm like, hard work? Go pour tar on 95 in Miami in July and tell me about hard work. Be grateful and give it 110%. I'm not going to name the person because it'd be unfair, but I saw an interview with a young lady who I won't even say what show it was, but she was playing the lead female role in a show on Broadway rather successfully up until a few years ago. And in her interview, she said, "Yeah, I give about 70% of the show." And I was like, wow. What? And why would you be so stupid to say that's what you do? And I have a lot of respect for the theater. When I went to the closing of Phantom, I won't say who it was, but one of the performers at the end of one of their numbers took a bow in the show, not at the end of the show, in the show, and my wife was sitting next to me, and I won't use all the language I used, but I was like, "Not in my bleeping church," So yeah, I always felt like give it 100%, and it's more fun as an actor. Roy, particularly playing that guy, he was such a mess, and to go through the emotional roller coaster of the Phantom track was like, as an actor, was glorious. People say, "Oh, you're so brave," and I thought, "No, I'm not. I'm having fun. This is fun." So, but whatever you do, it's like my wife says, her father said to her, "I don't care if you clean toilets. Your toilets better outshine everybody else's toilets. Take pride in what you do."
Yep. Yep. My daughter got a role and she was tree number 3. I say you be the best tree number 3 that you can ever be, and just stand out and make sure your branches are high and your head is held high as well. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No matter what you do, at least you can feel you put in an honest day. You've given it your all, and there's a certain level of joy, I think, that you can get from that.
Absolutely. I want to get into some things that are a little bit more delicate. And I know that you had it in your bio here about being a survivor of abuse.
Yeah.
And I know this, I always like to tell my audience too, this is, we care deeply about these very difficult conversations. And when people share things that are very, they become very vulnerable. So I want to give you that space and let our, audience know too, that this is a time where we embrace each other when we talk about things that we're vulnerable about. And so we appreciate you sharing your story.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so funny. I was thinking about this earlier today, and I was thinking that, so I mean, I suppose to cut to the chase, it was a priest who was he was brilliant. brilliant. As I said, my father was a handful when we were kids. Like my friends meet him now, they're like, that you were lying about your father, you know? And I said, well, you didn't see him when the testosterone levels were around 800, you know, you know. So, you know, I grew up very sort of place of, well, one, the getting sort of shipped off to Ireland, laid a sort of a bed of not being wanted, you know, and you know, and all that goes with that. You're ugly, you're stupid, you're all of, you know, all of this stuff. And so this priest was brilliant in that he could spot that in young men. And so his MO was, I want to help you. And as a kid, I was suicidal, you know, and so he could spot that, you know, and start off with, I suppose, in a way, kind of traditional therapy. And then he would manipulate that into, we need you to relive the pain and shame and horror of your childhood, you know? And then it just went south from there. And the diocese where it happened said it was the worst case of sexual abuse they'd ever read. And but I completely blocked it. Like, blocked it completely. I had no recollection of it. And, you know, Hal Prince, you know, he paid for my voice lessons, and he was, you know, he was like a father to me. But I left the third national tour, and the plan was I was coming to New York, and Hal wanted to teach me the Phantom track himself. He didn't want a stage manager or someone else teaching it. So I came in, and we started doing some work on it. And then he said, listen, one of the other Phantoms that I work with now was moving to the San Francisco company. And so come on in, we'll go through the format, you know, the formula or the format of auditioning for the role. And I did. And he pulled me to the side after the audition. And he said, I'm not going to give it to you. And I was like, what? You know, he said, yeah. He said, something is telling, talk about listening to messages. And I'm waving my finger at you. He said, something is telling me, he says, I know the type of actor you are. You know, he said, if you weren't the actor you were, he said, I wouldn't worry about it. He said, but I know how you operate. You're full in, because when I'm on stage, it's not acting, it's real for me, you know? So he said, something is telling me that there's something going on here. And the whole psychosexual dynamic between the father figure and, you know, between Christine and the Phantom, he said, something is telling me you got to figure something out here. And I left the Majestic and went to the 42nd Street train station. And the C train was coming southbound down into 42nd, I guess, from 50th Street. And I thought, I'm going to step in front of this train. And then I heard my son's name. And I stepped back. And I called my therapist and I told, you know, and of course I was making it about the audition, about losing the role of the Phantom, you know. So they said, listen, you need somebody better than us, or, you know, better than, I was seeing two therapists at the time. And so I went to another doctor and said, yeah, you're definitely suicidal. And we're going to put you on some medication. I was on it for 2 weeks. And then in a session, it all came back. And I think, so I'm I'm not a big proponent of SSRIs or any of these kind of, because I don't know what else they're doing to us, but some reason it worked for me in that I think my psyche was ready to deal with the memories because I had the medication, and it all came back just flooding back. And you know, it was a horror show, and it took a long time. Like even when so I called Hal and I told him what was going on, and he was really glad that I had, figured out what was underneath the surface that I could start to deal with. And that fall, when the Phantoms in New York took a leave of absence, and Hal said, "Do you want to go on?" And I said, "Absolutely." And then he called the producer in Canada and said, because Colin Wilkinson, the original Jean Valjean, was leaving the show, and they had a guy come fill in who had done the show in England for a bit to fill in until they found someone. And Hal called this guy, Garth Drabinsky, in Toronto and said, "Before you hire anyone, you need to come down and see Ciarán in the role." And I did. And so I'd say probably for the next, 3-4 years, maybe, I couldn't walk by a church without feeling I was going to vomit. And which is so strange because 3 of my mom's sisters are nuns. 2 of them have passed since, and her brother's a priest. And it's been a long journey, but what I realized was, and I didn't realize how much of it I was carrying, because I got myself into a really nasty car accident where I left my body. My back was broken in 3 places. And I just wanted out. I didn't want to deal with it. And that was before all those memories came back. And I finally got to the place where I thought, I need to forgive him.
Thank you so much for listening to part 1 of this incredible conversation with Ciarán Sheehan, who appeared in 1,000 productions as Phantom in Phantom of the Opera on Broadway. He's performed, as we said, in Carnegie Hall and so many other places, and has done such incredible work in sharing his talent. Coincidences have really impacted his life, and he paid attention to those little signs that he was receiving that became really big opportunities. And thank you so much to Scott Chesney for introducing me to Ciarán and for being an incredible change maker himself. He is a life coach, the commander in change, a phenomenal motivational speaker. If you like what you're hearing, and if this has given you some insight into yourself and your own world, share it, please. Share it with your sphere of influence. Share it on social media. Let people know about this podcast. You can like us on Facebook and Instagram at Today is the Day Live It. And you can also subscribe to the Today's the Day Changemakers YouTube channel. We love getting reviews and we love hearing your feedback. So we look forward to that. And remember, today is the day you can't go back to yesterday. So what steps are you taking today to get closer to your goals? I hope to see you next week. Have a great week, everyone.